stretched the broken range of riverside buildings, and beyond them flowed the Thames, a stream more heavily burdened with the secrets than ever was Tiber or Tigris. On my left, occasional flickering lights broke through the mist, for the most part the lights of taverns, and saving these rents in the veil, the darkness was punctuated with nothing but the faint and yellow luminance of the street lamps. Ahead was a black mouth, which promised to swallow me up as it had swallowed up my friend. In short, what lowered my condition and consequent frame of mind, and what with the traditions for me inseparable from that gloomy quarter of London, I was in the grip of a shadowy menace, which at any moment might become tangible, I perceived, in the most commonplace objects the yellow hand of Dr. Fu-Manchu. When the cab stopped in a place of utter darkness, I aroused myself with an effort, opened the door, and stepped out into the mud of a narrow lane. A high brick wall frowned upon me from one side, and dimly perceptible there towered a smokestack beyond. On my right uprose the side of a wharf building, shadowly, and some distance ahead, almost obscured by the drizzling rain, a solitary lamp flickered. I turned up the collar of my raincoat, shivering as much at the prospect as from physical chill. "You will wait here," I said to the man, and feeling in my breast pocket, I added, "If you hear the notes of a whistle, drive on and rejoin me." He listened attentively and with a certain eagerness. I had selected him that night for the reason that he had driven Smith and myself on previous occasions, and had proved himself a man of intelligence. Transferring a Browning pistol from my hip pocket to that of my raincoat, I trudged on into the mist. The headlights of the taxi were swallowed up behind me, and just abreast of the street lamp I stood listening. Save for the dismal sound of rain and the trickling of water along the gutters, all about me was silent. Sometimes this silence would be broken by the distant muffled note of a steam siren, and always, forming a sort of background to the near stillness, was the remote din of riverside activity. I walked on to the corner just beyond the lamp. This was the street in which the wooden buildings were situated. I had expected to detect some evidences of surveillances, but if any were indeed being observed, the fact was effectively masked. Not a living creature was visible, peer as I could. Plans I had none, and perceiving that the street was empty, and that no light showed in any of the windows, I passed on, only to find that I had entered a cul-de-sac. A rickety gate gave access to a descending flight of stone steps, the bottom invisible in the denser shadows of an archway, beyond which, I doubted not, lay the river. Still uninspired by any definite design, I tried the gate and found that it was unlocked. Like some wandering soul, as it has since seemed to me, I descended. There was a lamp over the archway, but the glass was broken, and the rain apparently had extinguished the light. As I passed under it, I could hear the gas whistling from the burner. Continuing my way, I found myself upon a narrow wharf with the Thames flowing gloomily beneath me. A sort of fog hung over the river, shutting me in. Then came the incident. Suddenly, quite near, there arose a weird and mournful cry, a cry indescribable and inexpressibly uncanny. I started back so violently that how I escaped falling into the river I do not know to this day. That cry, so eerie and so wholly unexpected, had unnerved me, and realizing the nature of my surroundings and the folly of my presence alone in such a place, I began to edge back toward the foot of the steps, away from the thing that cried, when a great white shape uprose like a phantom before me. There are few men, I suppose, whose lives have been crowded with so many eerie happenings as mine, but this phantom thing which grew out of the darkness, which seemed about to envelop me, takes rank in my memory among the most fearsome apparitions which I have witnessed. I knew that I was frozen with a sort of supernatural terror. I stood there with hands clenched, staring at that white shape which seemed to float. As I stared, every nerve in my body thrilling, I distinguished the outline of the phantom. With a subdued cry I stepped forward. A new sensation claimed me. In that one stride I passed from the horrible to the bizarre. I found myself confronted with something tangible, certainly, but something whose presence in that place was utterly extravagant, could only be reconcilable in the dreams of an opium slave. Was I awake? Was I sane? awake and sane beyond doubt, but surely moving, not in the purlieus of Limehouse, but in the fantastic realms of fairyland. Swooping, with open arms, I rounded up in an angle against the building, and gathered in this screaming thing which had inspired in me so keen a terror. The great ghostly fan was closed as I did so, and I stumbled back toward the stair with my struggling captive tucked under my arm. I mounted into one of London's darkest slums, carrying a beautiful white peacock. End of chapter 11. Recording by Elaine Twaddle. Stirling, Ontario.